rolling?
Let's do it.
Okay.
Camera's rolling.
All right, so I thought you could start just by telling us about how you ended up getting into the sport. So like maybe like at the beginning as a fighter, and then also like
should I say my name?
Training. Yeah, like to tell us the story. What's the Ricky Ray Taylor?
My name's Ricky Ray Taylor. Am I talking to you or the camera?
You're talking to me.
My name's Ricky Ray Taylor. I am. I've been in the sport since 1982, and the way it began was I was too late to sign up for baseball. My dad had me and my neighbor kid, brought us to the baseball fields. They're like a Lions Club, 12 years old. The guy behind the counter so nonchalantly. I'll never forget this guy. He's a big fat guy, had his fingers crossed upon his belly. He said, "I'm playing baseball this summer." Just so nonchalant, tapping his thumbs on his belly. And I was crushed. I'm thinking a whole summer without baseball. What am I gonna do? We go back to the car, and my dad drove us straight to the boxing gym. At the time, it was in the hood, it was in the projects. Now, the projects in South Mississippi aren't like the projects in New York City. They're little pink houses, one by one, green houses. The gym was in a liquor store, or behind a liquor store in the projects. We pull up there, walk in the back, you can hear the bags being hit and the people screaming. And this is how they did it back in 1982. My dad walks in, mind you, I'm the only white guy in the gym. He says, "Boy thinks he can box. The boy thinks he can fight. He thinks he can box." I'm like, "Dad, come on." They put me in the ring with sweaty gloves. They put gloves on my hands that come up to my elbows. Threw me in the ring, got some kid off the bag, and time. Next thing you know, this kid's swinging at me, coming at me, and I'm fighting back as hard as I could. And I didn't know what I was doing. Windmill. And I remember it lasted like 30 seconds, I guess. And the guy said, "Time." And my dad, I could distinctly remember my dad saying, "Look, I'm sorry." He's apologizing for me. The kid doesn't know what he's doing. But they said, "No, we like him." Dad said, "What, really?" They weren't looking to see if I could fight. They knew I couldn't fight because I had no training. They were looking to see if I would fight. And that's what made me a fighter, I guess, that I would. And I had to learn how to do it. And it took some time, but it did.
So from there, how do you make the Olympic village? What's the story?
Well, I ended my career with 140 fights. On my 100th fight was in the '88 Olympic box office in my region, and I made it to the finals. And I lost, and I quit. I was like, "I'm done." It was my 100 fights. I was in college. I just graduated. It was my high school graduation, my birthday, and that fight all on the same day, May 25th, '87. And I quit. I said, "I'm done." And I wound up getting a call 2 years later, and they moved me back up to I started back, Marquette, Michigan, at the Olympic Education Center. It was new, and they said, "We want to try to invest in you to make the '92 team." And they paid my way through college. I ended up being the second person to graduate college on a boxing scholarship. But I had 37 more fights up there. And I'm telling you, this sport, it's Teddy Atlas, he's a genius in this sport. He said it best. He said, boxers are made of this. Boxers are made of brick walls, all of us. And you go up to them with a sledgehammer and you pound them for years sometimes. You pound them, they don't budge. And then one day somebody goes up to it with a tap hammer and taps it and it crumbles. That's how all fighters are made, and that's exactly what happened to me. It got to a point where I couldn't even take a punch anymore. The toughest guy, I could go with anybody. I never got knocked down. Nothing happened, but something happened right at the end. After 137 fights, I couldn't do anything. It was like I was regressing drastically, and it was time to quit. And you hit your pinnacle, but then you fall. That's why this Bernard Hopkins that's fighting now, 49 years old, he's world champion. He didn't fight amateur. He didn't have any amateur fights. He turned pro and just kept it going from there. So that's why that's where his longevity is coming from.
So you're obviously you're still involved in the sport. You're a trainer right here. You've got some young bucks who work in advertising on the side who have got some real potential. My question is, you must still like something about the sport to have stayed involved with it. Like, do you like the sport? Like, what do you love about boxing, or what keeps you involved?
I'm so passionate about the science of the sport. This is what just, because the longer I stay in it, the more I'm digging into it, and the more I'm learning about the art and the science of the sport. I didn't get it when I was a fighter. I wish I'd have known this when I was fighting. For instance, the two best times to hit somebody in boxing are while they're throwing a punch, while the opponent's throwing a punch, and immediately after. I never knew that. I just went in there and fought. But as I became a trainer and stepped outside of the ropes and started teaching people and trying to, now I'm really digging into, okay, when is the best time to throw a punch? Now I know. I wish I'd have known that back then. But, you know, I'm 45 now. Forget you. I'm 45, and now I'm digging into the sport so much, and so the more I learn about it, the more excited I get about it. It's fascinating, the science behind the sport. That's what keeps me in it.
So what do you think is the biggest misperception people have about boxing? The general public, either doing it or watching it. What's the thing that they think about boxing, and the biggest gap between that and maybe the reality of the situation?
They think it's a slugfest. Anybody, they think it's a tough man contest, and it's not. They don't get the science. They don't. I was 100 and something fights in. I didn't get it either. So the guy on the street really doesn't get it. They don't get it at all. In fact, I went and saw what was that fight? The Pacquiao and Tim Bradley, a big fight about a year or so ago. I went and saw it with a bunch of friends. I could barely stay in the room with them. They're all fans. They didn't get it. I'm sitting here trying to listen to the commentators, trying to listen to Teddy Atlas break it down, and they're screaming and hollering. It's a typical scenario of people that don't get it. And, you know, they're looking for the knockout. I'm looking for why the guy's about to get knocked out. And that's what's compelling to me. But they you know, God bless them. They're loving the sport, and the knockout probably makes them more exciting than when I discover a nugget of truth.
So do you think if they knew some of the stuff you did, like if they learned that, does that deepen their appreciation? How does that change anything if they know about those subtleties?
I think, of course, I think it would, but it would. I don't know if it would deepen it, because I know they're really excited about it. They can tell me everything about Manny Pacquiao or these certain fighters. They're fans. They're fans. I'm not a fan, brother. I'm a student. And so it's like we're two different. My appreciation is pretty deep and intense, but so is theirs. But we're on two totally different levels. And bridging those two, I'm sure there's a bridge somewhere. It'd be interesting to find it.
So you mentioned some of these misperceptions, and your buddies are fans, but a lot's been said about boxing being in decline. Do you have any perspective, less about doing it down the gym, but watching it? Do you have any kind of point of view on why you think the sport has it lost anything that has resulted in that?
I remember when I started in '82. I remember these conversations of my dad telling people that I started boxing. My dad was a big guy in the community in Gulfport, Mississippi. Everybody knew him. And I remember them saying, you know, boxing's in decline. It's not like it used to be. It sure isn't back like it was back then. They've always been saying that. But I'll tell you why people are saying it more now, because back then they would have a fight, say, at the Garden, or I don't know, in the fairgrounds. Everybody in town would go. They'd all go, and people all in the area would come from states, and they'd drive over there, and there'd be a lot of people there. But they didn't have HBO. They didn't have media. They didn't have TV the way that it is now. Now you can see the stuff on YouTube. It's everywhere. So people don't really attend them physically like they did back in the day, because you can see it at home. You can see this fight on the couch without leaving your living room. And it's much more abundant now. It's just the media is just taking over.
But what about even watching it on TV? Do you think less people are doing that? Are more people kind of interested in other sports? What's your perspective on something, say, like a cage fight versus boxing?
What you tell me? What was for the longest time, what was the only sporting event that people would pay on pay-per-view to watch? Yeah, they didn't pay for the World Series. They didn't go there. It was boxing for the longest time. Nowadays, I know they've got the cage matches and the full MMA and all that. I mean, that's it. But I don't think it can touch this sport. This is the sweet science, man. It's not about kicks and training barefoot like these guys do. It's just a different, more elegant sport. And I know to put elegance with boxing isn't really a good mix sometimes when you got some shady characters in it. But there's a level of superiority to boxing in my mind that I don't think any of these guys will ever be able to touch in MMA and all that. No matter how popular it gets, we're always going to be up here.
So tell us about that that elegance. What you know? I think that's really interesting. Can you tell us a bit more about what make, you know, it's often described as the noble art. What makes boxing elegant or noble?
I think it's just what I was getting into with the science. I think when people start getting into it, like for instance, white collar boxing is becoming really big. Back when I was fighting for years, for instance, girls weren't even allowed in our gym. They weren't allowed in there at all. And I had 4 sisters. They, you know, they didn't know where my gym was. But nowadays they'd be holding mitts and working corners and everything else. But I think as more people are getting involved in it and they're starting to get a taste of the science, just a taste of it. There's some white collar fighters and guys that are training and girls that are training now that have been doing it for a long time, and they're starting to get just a hint of what the science is all about, and I think that's compelling them to tell their friends, and that grows the sport in my eyes.
And what about, so like words like nobility or class? You know, you said there's a weird tension because some of these characters are shady, but is there, you know, it's often just said that boxing in the day had a certain class. Does the sport still have that? Like, why did it ever have it in the first place? And do you think it's lost any of that?
I don't think it's lost it. I mean, granted, you know, going back to what I'm saying with the media, there's so many. A guy can get up here on ESPN that's broadcast all over the world and have a bad taste in his mouth on boxing, spit it out on ESPN, and everybody's hearing it. And who's going to take that to heart? Then somebody else will write an article about it. I mean, so, you know, you just have to pick and choose who you listen to. It's just like picking a presidential candidate or anything. I mean, there's personal feelings involved. Who's got the loudest mouth? And they're going to influence most people. Do it for yourself. That's why I really think this white-collar portion that's growing in boxing is really helping this sport, because these people are media CEOs, they're business executives, they're getting a taste of this sport, and they're spreading the news out to different genres.
Okay. You guys should jump in as well.
Yeah, well, I think it's really interesting, you know, just thinking about this idea of it's a, you know, like a noble or an honourable sport. And I'm just going to, like, is there like a code of conduct that you personally subscribe to with boxing? Like, a particular philosophy around how you treat others and things like that?
A code of conduct.
Well, like a boxing code, I suppose.
Well, you know what? There's in the gym, you know, I mean, I've spending so much time in the gym. There's a certain strut and a certain walk that fighters and former fighters have. We have, you know, there's rules of what to talk about, what not to say. For instance, if there's an old man in the gym that's 85 years old, an old former fighter, used to fight, champion, everybody knows him. He's old though. You don't go up to him and start shadowboxing with him. You don't. It's just things we don't do. A white collar guy, maybe even a fan, would go up and do that, and they just don't get it. There's certain things like. There's a way that we talk, for instance. I mean, I'm kind of maybe veering off of what you're asking, but this is kind of interesting because there's, in my eyes, and I've been doing this for a long time, if I walked out on the street right now and asked five men walking around, did you ever box before? I guarantee you 3 of them would say they used to fight, they used to box. The chances that it actually happened are 0. No, I'm saying maybe 1, maybe. Everybody used to box, okay? So then I would ask, okay, really, what weight did you fight? Or did you fight amateur or pro? I fought amateur. Oh, really? What weight? 150. Well, I know that's not a weight class, so you're lying. I mean, there's so many things that you can dig into, just to dig that we know as fighters, and it's like a communication that we have amongst one another that we know. For instance, I'm a Golden Glover. Oh, really? See, we don't talk like that. We're not Golden Glovers. But when people say that, we know that they're one of these guys that used to say that they used to box, but they never really did. There's so many out there that did, that say, you know, they maybe watched all the Rocky movies, and they're like, hey, yeah, and shadowboxing in the living room, and next thing you know, they're fighters. But the funniest thing is, then they go to the bar and tell everybody they're a boxer, and they get their clock cleaned, and this guy that beat them up says, yeah, I beat up a boxer. And then, you know, it just spirals from there. So that's my life. That's what I'm living with all the time. It's kind of fun, though, I guess.
Well, and on those kind of like, I like that unwritten rule about not kind of, I don't know, shadow boxing against the former great. Are there any other things like that that only boxers know? Maybe they're not even written down, but they're just kind of signs of respect to do with like, I mean, we all know you can't hit people below a certain point. You know, when they're on the ground, you're meant to leave them alone. But are there any other like unwritten things that are just about like a respect, like a respect?
I'm sure there's so many, you know, but I mean, for instance, in the gym, okay, it's this white collar boxing gym thing is, I think it's taken off from Manhattan here. I guess in some of the other big cities, it's gotten big, but what this has done, it's allowed us as trainers to bond a little bit, because now we don't have, it's not all fighters in there. There's a lot of CEOs and, like I said, white collar guys that we're maneuvering around through sparring sessions and having to talk with one another, and so it's kind of grown into its own animal now. There's this white collar boxing, and it's formed. It's allowed these trainers, such as myself and my comrades, to develop a communication within us, between us. For instance, if I've got a white collar guy that's kind of tough, all right, and I'm asking another trainer, yo, can I get my guy to spar your guy? And he knows his guy's not going to be able to hang with my guy, but this guy's standing right there. He'll say, yeah, I'll call you. And you probably heard that around the gym.
Yeah, you said that about me.
I know, but rather than say, yo, your guy would wipe my guy's clock clean, I don't want that to happen because he can't fight. I'm just trying to act like he can. Rather than say, he'll just say, I'll call you. I mean, there's little things like that we do all the time, and it's fun. I mean, you know, we joke. I should write a book about just about all these different things that we say to each other. It's fun.
Do you think there's like a lot of life lessons that you learn from boxing? You know, like the humility that it teaches you, and the hard work and all that kind of stuff. Like, what are the things that you think, you know, and like for a lot of troubled kids, they get put in a boxing gym, and next thing you know, they go from being a guy out the street, Mike Tyson's a perfect example of doing stupid shit, to kind of actually getting discipline in their lives and getting their life back together a little bit.
Yeah,
that kind of things in there that you've seen boxing do to people.
That's a good question, because you know what I think it's taught me more than anything? You know, mind you, I've got 7 kids in my family. I'm the only one that graduated college, and it's, you know, I grew up in a very poor neighborhood in South Mississippi, the poorest state. I mean, but I think boxing taught me there ain't no free lunch. There ain't no free lunch, man. You can't take shortcuts in this sport. When I was training growing up in my first gym, when we got to the gym, we were supposed to run around the block. That was a mile. We'd run 2 or 3 times around the block before we started. And it was South Mississippi, and it's hot. And, you know, so after the run, we'd get in the ring, usually we'd spar. And so, but here's the guy, and we're shot after 3 miles in the hot sun. It's tiring. You're fatigued. You're like, oh man, I gotta spar now. Here's a guy here that skipped his run. Maybe stood out, hung out over here in the corner. Then he throw some water on his face and run up to the gym. Yeah, right, here we go, let's spar. And he's fresh, and we're tired, and he beats us up. But in time, as it started building, as we got in better shape, and as the tournament came around, we ran harder, and he kept skipping his runs, he would lose and we'd win. And that happened all the time. That happened all the time. That's the, you know, by the time I was 16, 17, I'm starting to see these guys falling away, and I'm the guy that got up and ran before school every day, running, and staying a little bit longer in the gym as opposed to being the first one to leave. There ain't no free lunch, man. You learn this. You learn this in this sport more than anything else. I played 9 years of football, American football, played baseball, did it all. You could take shortcuts, but you can't do it in boxing. You can't do it, you won't win. And that's the bottom line.
You mentioned science is the biggest thing that is different from, or makes you different from everyone else, and that the younger kids that you're training are getting into science. Can you tell us a little bit about what are those things that you look for that people are realizing about the sport in terms of the science? Like, what are those characteristics?
You know, what I'm starting to learn as from being a trainer. And I think I could kind of see it growing up as a fighter, but I'm starting to be able to see who can actually do the sport. When I first started, my dad got me into it. He thought anybody could do it. I guess he underestimated me. Since I caught on so quickly and did well, he would get all my friends from the neighborhood. Come to the gym, come on. They'd come and they'd hang around for a day, maybe a week, and then they'd fall off into the sunset. I didn't really catch on to the fact that they just couldn't do it. I just thought maybe they weren't interested. Everybody wants to box. Every man wants to be a fighter to some extent. They just couldn't do it. They couldn't. And so now I'm seeing, as I'm 45 now, I can see, I'm down to the point where I can almost look at somebody right off the bat and just tell. It's funny, I was standing outside in the courtyard talking to Dan, who stands out in the courtyard. He was looking at me, you know, and he didn't know who I was, and I almost said, what the hell are you looking at? Because he's a big old guy, you know, but he's looking at, and so I looked back and was like, and he goes, what are you doing here? I said, I'm here to meet Dylan. Because he looked kind of cocky. I know who he was, you know. But he said, and so we just started talking. He said, look, I'm going to apologize. I know I was staring you down, but I've just gotten to a point where I can just tell people belong and they don't belong. And as he's talking to me, I'm putting that together in my head. I do the same thing in the gym. I know who belongs there and who doesn't. And with this white collar thing, you got to realize there are people that are 30, 40 years old coming into the gym, and they're like, they've never done any sports at all. They've never thrown a ball. They never played on a team. They were bookworms growing up, and now they're 40 years old. They run their own business, and they can take the afternoon off, and they're like, Ricky, here's my money. Teach me how to fight. I don't know anything. And this is what I'm saying. So I've gotten to where I can almost peg them out before they even pay me the money, before they even come to me. I know what kind of background they have. If they played football, if they wrestled, I can tell. And it's just from experience, man. You learn this stuff. And, you know, sometimes you'll see the new trainers in there. They can't do that. They haven't been in the sport long enough. They haven't paid their dues. They can't do it. Just like I'm sure Dan has a new guy doing what he's doing. He'll walk around and a burglar will walk right by him. He doesn't know. He doesn't know what they look like. Dan will catch him by the back of his shirt, I'm sure, and snag him out. So, you know.
So, like, we were talking about, you know, like, the average person thinks that boxing is about two guys trying to beat each other up or hit that one knockout punch. That's the glory. And kind of once, like, you learn more about the sport like I have, you appreciate some more subtleties. Can you talk to us about what some of those things are, like things like footwork? Like what does good footwork even mean, and what does it mean to be maneuvering your opponent without even actually? How can you win without even throwing a punch? What are the things beyond actually just hitting each other in the face that set apart a good boxer?
Well, you know, like I said, what I was talking about before the fight, that's a huge thing. These things that you're seeing on TV, when they film the weigh-in. They show that sometimes on Showtime where the two guys are at the weigh-in. You got to look deeper than what's going on there. Look into that. Watch them look at each other. If you can ever see them take a glance at each other. Not when they're nose to nose, but when one of them's weighing in, or one of them standing here, and the managers are talking, look at the fighters. See if one of them's looking at them. You know, just watch little nonverbal things. And that gets in people's heads, man. It gets in their head. I could go on with stories about, you know, things that I've done, but it's happened a lot. It's happened a lot where guys are in the dressing room. For an amateur, we share the same dressing room with our opponent. We don't have separate dressing rooms like they do in the pros, where this guy's on this side of the Coliseum, this guy's in amateurs, we're all together. We're eating together. Like I said, we're checking weight together. We're taking physicals together. We're doing everything together. We're getting dressed together. And then we go in there and we fight together. Sometimes, when I lived at the Olympic Education Center, we're rooming together, and we had to fight each other. You had to fight your roommate. In a big tournament, it's just... Now, on top of the fact you're sparring every day to getting ready for this big fight, next thing you know, you get determined, I'm going to fight this guy. It's much more close like that. But going back to your question, there's so many ways that you can get in the guy's head. There's so many ways, just little looks and ways that you carry yourself. And it's all about perception, man. It's so much about perception. What's the first thing the fighter does at the end of a fight? First thing. Who's he doing that for? What if he knows he lost? What if his nose is broken? He didn't win a round. He's trying to influence the judges. Perception. He doesn't know what they saw. They could have seen something totally different, which happens a lot more than what you think. They see a totally different fight than what went on in there. It's all trying to influence the judges. Right when the boxer steps into the boxing ring, here's a boxer here, there's a boxer here. They're shuffling their papers. The boxers are dancing. They're looking sharp. They're looking here. Let me get up here. They're looking sharp. They're looking confident. What is all this? What is all this? It's all perception, man. Sometimes what they feel when they're fighting a killer, they feel like this. Oh, good. They're not gonna show that, man. You gotta look confident. You wanna look like a champion. You wanna look like the judge is doing the right thing when he circles your name and hands the paper in. It's all perception, man. It's a show. I assimilate the ring as a stage. It's a stage, and sometimes I tell my clients right off the bat when we start training, look, my thing is to make you look good in the ring. I don't care what you feel. Don't tell me your shoulders hurting or you stayed up. I don't care. I'm trying to make you look good in the ring. I'm not a psychiatrist. I'm a boxing trainer. It's a stage.
Can I ask you a quick question? How you were saying before, like, hypothetically, Dylan walks into the gym and he's like, I saw your thing and I want to be a boxer. What would be, say, 5 to 10 things, just names like, you know, grit, but what are 5 to 10 words that come to your head that, like, you're looking at and you can be like, you know, the C parts and that's the guy, like, that's the diamond in the rough. What are the 5 to 10 things that you can think of through your head? You're like, he's hardworking, he's got grit, he's got determination. Like, what are those 5 to 10 words that you could kind of really put in there?
There's endurance. The word endurance goes a long way, and it goes more than just what you can physically perform. I'm talking about endurance up here. This is such a mental game. At the weigh-ins, okay, at the stare down, are you going to collapse in this? Or are you going to endure? Are you going to? You don't feel this sometimes. Sometimes you're weak. You've been trying to make weight, and your sparring's sucked for the past week because you've been dieting in the gym. Can you endure? What's your endurance? Are you going to be able to still poke your chest out and look like a champion when this guy's staring at you while he's eating his lunch? You know, or you feel weak, you feel tired, you feel like you can't lift your arms, but you got to look like a champion. That's one. Grit's huge. That's a big one. I mean, there's something about that last minute of the fight. Last minute, just, you got to dig. You want to drop your hands. More than anything, you want to drop your hands, but you got to keep them up. You're going to get hit. I mean, do you have that? Some people just don't have it, and they fall away, man. And sometimes even a real fighter has it in here, but he hasn't trained, or he screwed up on his dieting, and he's too weak, and I really can't pick his hands up in that last minute. Grit's huge. Confidence. There's an air that a fighter has to carry about themselves. Much more than the baseball player or the tennis player. There's an air where you have to believe. You really have to believe that you're better than this guy. I don't care about the world. I don't care that I got fired from my job. I'm the worst person that's ever done this job. I don't care about I failed out of school. I'm better than this guy right now. And you got to know that. And you got to feel that. And he's got to know it. He's got to know that you feel that. There's a lot more to it than just going in there and making a slugfest out of this.
So I had a question about journeys. We you know, the 12 rounds of a fight, if it goes that long, obviously, like, the rhythm can change. Someone can be winning, losing, someone's hurt, and they're not hurt. but we often don't understand, like, the journey that's led to the fight.
Yeah.
Like, what goes on before, like, not just like the day, the week, the month, the year, like What does it mean to have a journey?
That's a good question, because so many people don't get, when they're watching a fight, or flip on a fight on this television network, and these guys are bouncing and they're ripped and they're cut. They don't know anything about the journey, because much of this journey is just them by themselves, without even a trainer, without anybody there. They're running at 5 in the morning. Why do they run at 5 in the morning? Because they're hoping their opponent's asleep at that time. It gets in their head, and they're running, and my opponent's sleeping. I'm sure maybe if he's running at 5, maybe I'll get up at 4. I mean, it's part of the journey that builds this mind that makes you feel like you're a champion. And that journey, I tell you what, and people underestimate this portion of it that affects the journey, is your dieting, man. It's your cutting weight. Boxers are always trying to slim as light as they can. And in that, if you don't do it just right, you're going to wind up, you're sparring, mind you, in the gym, you're going to get beat up. And what's that going to do to your psyche leading into a fight when you've been beaten up by these guys that aren't even supposed to be as good as you, and they're beating you up in the gym? You gotta endure past that, man. You gotta. It's tough.
About struggle, like, you know, we hear a lot of these boxers coming from low-income areas and having to, I guess, you can struggle in the ring, but they've had, half of these guys will never know, but the things they've had to endure just to even, I don't know, to make it to the ring.
I mean, that makes you tough, man. You know, I think about these guys that swam over here from Cuba, right? And they come over here and just to box, because they can't really do anything in Cuba with that oppressive government. So they swim to Miami or on a raft or whatever with shark-infested waters, and they get here and they start fighting, I don't know, amateur. And here he's fighting a kid that grew up in a 4-bedroom house with basketball court and maybe has his own car at 15. He's fighting this kid. Who wants it more, man? Who wants it more? And that third round, when those hands really want to drop, who's going to hold their hands up more and keep fighting? There is a level of toughness that is taught and that is ingrained in people that come from the hood, as opposed to the guy the white-collar kid that grew up with money. You know, I'm sure that there are some that can make it, and probably I'm sure there are a few that have made it, that have grown up over here. I can't think of any right offhand, but I'm sure it's happened. But yeah, there are a few, I guess, from the amateur days. I don't know about pros if they took it to the next level, but that's taught, man. It's taught, and I think that happens in life in so many different areas as well, in business and, you know, anything else. Yeah.
Now, one of the things you mentioned earlier was that, you know, going back years and years, women weren't allowed in the gym, and so how's that changed today? Like, do you have a lot of women boxers? Do you notice more women come to events?
Yeah, I mean, I think that movie, what's that, with Hilary Swank, I think that really did a lot for,
Baby, yeah.
What is it, $1 Million Baby, yeah, I think that really did a lot for girls boxing, man. It really around that time, when was that, like 2003, I guess, or 4, it was around that time. I've seen a lot more, it seems like women have been boxing a lot more since then, but I think that's done a lot for the sport. You know, people I got a little old school vibe in me. I really don't like girls going in there and pounding on each other. Some of them are really cute little girls. They're just hitting each other, breaking each other's noses. And I mean, I guess it's good, you know, for some people, but it's not. I think there's more of an abundance per capita for guys that should do this or that could do this than girls. And sometimes girls that really shouldn't be doing it are kind of swayed into the mix when they really don't belong in a boxing gym, and they would just, and I don't know how that affects their psyche, their confidence, when they finally walk out of the gym saying, you know, I can't do this, and they go and live their life. To a guy, that would really hurt, that would really crush a guy. I know that would have crushed me to know that I couldn't do it. I think that was a primary motivating factor, by the way, that kept me doing it, because I remember looking around the gym thinking, well, if this guy can do it, there's no way I'm going to walk out of here saying I can't do it. And I was 11 or 12 thinking that. I don't know how that would affect a woman. I don't know. It still is kind of new to me.
Can you tell us how it feels to be inside the arena and inside the ring? Like, what does the air feel like? What does the boxer feel like? What does it feel like to be outside of the ring watching? Just kind of get us a sense of that.
To be outside of the ring watching, you mean
Or just even in the arena. What does that feel like?
Like fight, you mean like fight night, like to be in
Yeah.
As a fan or as a
I
fighter?
think both. It'd be interesting to hear both sides, like as a fan.
So I'm assuming you haven't been either. You know, when I first quit boxing, mind you, I didn't go as far as so many people. I mean, I had a lot of fights. I won a lot of regional tournaments and things like that, and I was blessed to get that scholarship, and I endured through that. But when I quit boxing, it was a little difficult to watch the fights on TV or go to fights. As a former competitor, a recent former competitor, I'm watching the guys that I used to box with still competing and still winning and moving on up the ladder, because I was friends with a lot of guys, or a few guys, that became world champions. And in the early days, that was really difficult for me to sit and watch Friday night fights, and here's the guy that I fought, and I'm like, oh man, he's still doing it, and he's winning. And I'm laying on bed 20 pounds bigger than I used to be when I fought him, and out of shape and with a beer in my hand. It was not a good thing. It was tough. But I really don't know what it's like to be as a fan in an arena, because I've never been a fan of the sport. I've always been a student. I've always dug into, I don't want, when I'm watching fights on TV, my wife knows not to talk to me. I don't want to talk. Just let me listen. And she was like, you can watch. Can't you just turn the sound down and talk to me? I love you, baby, but I got to hear what's going on. I'm a student, a perpetual student of the game.
What about to be in the ring? What's the kind of, is there an electricity? Is it fear? Is it blank? Does everyone go away? Do you see anyone? Is the crowd?
Yeah, you know what? Everybody goes away. Everybody goes away. You know what's weird though? My mom always sat front row, and she sang the Star Spangled Banner and the national anthem in many of my fights, and sisters, ring card girls. My dad announced. It was a family thing. My mom was a front row in many of my fights. Of all the crowd and the people screaming and all this, I could always hear her voice. Ricky! Ricky! It was just that little chirp that I could hear from my mom. But everything just blackens out. You can't really hear anything. That's funny. The one time I was knocked out cold, 145, I fought this guy 7 times. The last time we fought, he knocked me out. He beat me the first 4 times. I beat him twice, and I knew I had his number. I was like, this guy will never beat me again. I started getting pretty, and it was like the last thing I heard was, get the hell off the rope, from my dad. Get the hell off the rope. And it was like, it's like I blinked my eyes, and next thing you know, I'm on my back, and the referee, I'd never been down at this point. This is about 60 fights into it. The referee's straddling my feet, and he goes, 3, no, he goes, 4. And the first thing that hit my mind was, where did 1, 2, and 3 go? And I'm laying on my back. I'm like, wait a minute. And I pick my head up, and I see the guy jumping up and down like that on the other side of the ring. And I said, no way. And they put the salt in my nose, and immediately I jumped up. And I was pushing the ref. I said, why did you stop the fight? He's trying to hold me. I said, no. And I'm pushing, and I'm going crazy. Why did you stop the fight? What's going on? I was winning the fight. You lose a page of your life. There was something happened between me looking pretty on the ropes and that point where the referee was cradling me that was wiped away. I was laying on my back. When you see a guy get knocked out, sometimes they'll jump up. They don't realize they've been knocked out, and they'll push the ref and they'll go crazy. What's going on? You don't realize what they just lost a page. They were fighting. Last thing they remember. So it was a pretty crazy experience, yeah.
What does it feel like to knock someone out then?
Oh yeah, that's good. That's good, yeah. It's a good feeling. It really, a lot of it depends on what you got, the animosity you got with this guy. I mean, if going before the fight, was he trying to taunt you in the dressing room, or was he staring at you? Or, I mean, there's a lot to that, and that's why you see when a guy gets knocked out on TV, and the guy goes nuts and he's climbing on the ropes and he's screaming. Believe me, there was something going on with these guys in the dressing room. He's lost it in the ring now after he knocks him out. You can just imagine the euphoric feeling this guy has when this guy's been taunting him for months leading up to that fight. So
we were watching like a show where they were saying no boxers actually genuinely want to hurt the other person. It was something about, obviously on the face of it, boxing is violent, but is there anything that that you would say that counters that? That says like maybe that's a surface thing, but there's something much more than that that people don't see. That it's actually, people call it like a dance. Let's dance. What's that all about?
Like I said, it goes back to the animosity. I mean, I've fought guys that I'm still really good friends with, and we fought a couple times, but there were some people that I really dearly hated when I was boxing. I wasn't a Christian back then. My mind was in a different place, and I sincerely hated that person. Yeah, I wanted to hurt him really bad, but I'm sure that they felt the same way about me, and it probably fueled my anger more, I guess. But it happens, yeah. But I would think that's like that in many sports, man. I mean, they want to defeat this person to a level where they never want to compete again. That animal, that passion, that hunger, I'm sure that erupts in many sports.
I was just going to ask a question. When you're in the ring, just in terms of strategy, does it become more instinctual once you're in there? Or are you like literally thinking 3, 4, 5 shots ahead? Or you know what I mean? Like how? Yeah.
You are thinking like you should be anyway. That's where you got to get emotion out of the way. You can't get you see the Rocky movies and the guys before the fight the referee's trying to hold them back. He's like, I want to kill you. That's emotion. You can't be emotional, man. We're emotionless zombies in there. Because if you're emotional, you're not thinking 2, 3 fights ahead. You're thinking about that one punch that you just want to go in. You can't be like that. You got to be an emotionless zombie, and that's a big misconception too. By the way, these movies, Hollywood and boxing are horrendous mixes. Horrendous. They're terrible. Any boxing movie I've ever seen is horrendous. And people say, well, what about Rocky 2? I don't care. They're all bad, man. Raging Bull. I mean, whatever. To me, I'm such a black and white realist guy. I don't like any of it. It's all just horrendous to me. I don't know where I went off on that spin, but don't get me started.
Give us an example. I like the idea of the strategy. Give us an example of like thinking several moves ahead, and what would be an example of like where you're predicting something and counter-predicting. What would be a scenario?
The 2 best times to hit somebody in boxing are while they're throwing a punch and immediately after. You have to know this, all right? Because and what's really cool nowadays, where you can study tapes of guys and you can see things that they naturally do. When he slips to the right, he usually always comes back with the right hand. Well, you can set him up like that. You can get him slipping to the right, and know that right hand's coming, and then slip it, and then he's in the middle of throwing a punch. There's your window. I mean, you gotta setting guys up. That's where the science comes in, man. That's where it's so fascinating to me as a trainer, when I can start feeding this information and setting my fighters up for this, and to take advantage of that one little sliver of a moment where there's your opportunity, and they can actually perform that in the ring. I'm sure it's fascinating for the fighter as well. As a fighter, I was guilty of not really listening to my corner man. I just kind of went out there and fought because I didn't know anything about the science. And I'm sure they did. I'm positive they did, but I was hard-headed, and I just wanted to fight and throw my hands and see if I could outwork the guy. And, so much for the science.
We were talking about rituals. Boxing seems like one of those sports that, the iconography is always like someone like wrapping their hands and in dark lit room, or lacing up their boots. Like, are there any other like rituals around boxing?
There are a lot of them. Yeah, they have to have the left hand wrap first before the right hand. Many of them, or they'll have to put a certain sock on before they put the other one on. I mean, that's all superstitious stuff. I mean, I never really got into that, but it's very common in boxing. Very common with certain gloves have to be put on first, and I think it's inconsequential though. I don't think it's important.
What about characters? We would think, boxing seems like more than the 2 guys in the ring. There's a trainer, there's a cut guy, there's a commentator. Like, who are some of the other like iconic figures in and around boxing that probably have interesting stories that we don't really see or think about?
Sparring partners are big. Many times, when you're seeing a fight on TV, the guy that's probably most productive and most responsible for getting this guy on television and getting him to the level of being peaking where he is right now, at that point, is a sparring partner that's usually in the crowd somewhere. And those guys are big, man, because they're sweating just as much as them. They're going 10 rounds sparring with these guys and bleeding with them, and you know, they're fighters themselves, so they're dieting. They probably fought on the same card somewhere underneath the fighter. Those are big. I think that's the biggest thing. My sparring partners growing up were my best friends. My best man at my wedding was my sparring partner in Mississippi before I went to Marquette. Then when I got to Marquette, my best friend up there was my sparring partner again. He was from Youngstown, Ohio. We got in the ring, we tried to kill each other. I mean, you think we hated each other. But as soon as the bell rang, we got out. Hey, you okay? I'm hugging him, man. I'm sorry about that right uppercut hit you. I know your nose is broken. I hope I didn't break your nose. We're like that. There's a bond you form when you're going to war with somebody. It's a weird bond. I don't get it. I can't explain it. But I don't know. That happens.
Cool, yeah.
That's brilliant. Yeah, just have one final question. Just something that you said earlier that I found fascinating, that I wouldn't mind digging a bit deeper, which was when you were saying the difference between boxing and MMA. You know, boxing is not about kicking people. It's not about training bare feet. Are there other things that you think, you know, the differences between the two sports?
You know, one of the primary differences, I think that, I know when I started boxing, we paid $15 for the whole year. I didn't pay a gym fee. Mind you, it was in a shed behind a liquor store. We had a fan in the back. The rings weren't even boxing rings. What I'm saying, it gears towards the inner city, towards the low income. And I'm sure nobody in that gym could afford anything. I fought my first 7 or 8 fights in tennis shoes, the same shoes I ran in, the same shoes I went to school in. We didn't have any money. And boxing is geared to people like that. However, MMA is a different animal. These are the little white-collar suburban kids. Their mama drives them to the gym in the minivan, and they have to buy their uniform. That everybody looks the same night, white uniform. There's money invested in that, so we're talking about a different class of people. So when you start trying to merge these classes together, you see the difference. You see it. I see it in this white-collar gym where I'm training in Manhattan, Mendez Boxing Gym. I see the blend. These MMA guys are starting to come in there so they can learn boxing. They know what do they call it? Stand-up, I guess, where the kicks, but they want to learn how to box to put it in their MMA stuff. So they're trying to blend in there, but they stand out, man. For one, they're barefooted. We tell them to put shoes on to get in the ring. But there's a level of toughness that I was talking about earlier. They're grown up rough, as opposed to these guys. It's hard, man. I'm sure that there's a few of them that succeed, but they stand out, man. In my eyes, they stand out, and I got to get over that. I really got to get over it. But you know, it is what it is.
I have one last one, which was just about the word heroes. You know, you hear like language like champion and hero. Like who and what does it mean to be a champion in boxing, and who and what does it mean to be a hero, in your personal opinion?
A hero, a champion in the sport, I think, is anyone that has overcome that mountain. There's a mountain. We've all got mountains and margins around us. And in my eyes, I think there are many white-collar guys that I'm training, and girls, that have overcome that. They've overcome this mountain, and they've actually gotten into the ring and hit somebody and been hit. They would have never thought that before they met me or before they came into a boxing gym. And mind you, that's intimidating in itself, to walk into a boxing gym and say, yo, I want to fight. I want to teach me how to fight. And that's intimidating. I get it. I've seen it enough. I think those are champions in their own right. And now, if they ever get to a point of competing, maybe outside of just a little maybe sparring session, but actually competing, maybe turning amateur, or even these white collar shows. They got these in Manhattan. They got this Haymakers for Hope thing. If they could ever fight in one of those and win, or even fight, if they get to the point where they're fighting, that's a champion to me. That they've overcome so much to get to that point, so much more than they've ever done in just about anything outside of their business or maybe getting their degree, earning their degree in college, that's a champion to me. Hero, I think many of the heroes are some of the ones that have really overcome more than that. Or the heroes, I think, in this sport are the ones that, for instance, there was a one-arm boxer in Pensacola when I was a kid. He had one arm. He had a stub. It was just, I don't know what it was. He couldn't really do anything. When he fought with one arm, and he was really good. That's a hero to me. That's a hero to me. He had one arm, and he was really hard to beat. I thank God I never fought him. And to me, it's a lose-lose. But he did really well. How many people did he inspire? How many hurt people did he inspire? Or disabled people, I guess. There's a lot of those in different sports, but there's a few in boxing, not many.
Awesome.
Goosebumps. Love it.
That's amazing. Thanks a lot.
Was it good?
Yeah.
All right,
That was
good.
awesome. So many
Thanks, y'all.
stories. You're born for the.
I could be on forever, man.
It's great.
Hey.
No, did you want to do any like?
I got the hand wraps and all
Anyway.
that, man.
Well, you just saw
Well, so
taking a picture.
it's yeah, awesome. I tell you what, you left-handed or right-handed?
Right-handed.
You're right-handed.
Yes.
Left-handed or right-handed?
Right.
So if you were to hit me as hard as you could, you use your right hand, right?
Yes.
Can you punch with those?
Should I take them off?
Probably so. I don't know.
Okay.
I always make Dylan take his off when he's.
Yeah.
This is like what?
You look tough. Forget about it. Oh my. Why don't we just let them fight? No. Come on, guys. Look at it. Oh my gosh.
Okay.
All right.
What
We're gonna.
do you do?
I don't know how to face this. Like.
Yeah. You guys can actually take a step in closer to each other.
Yeah.
There, good.
Oh, do we high five?
No.
Okay.
Right-handed fighter. Right-handed. If you were to hit me as hard as you could, you use your right hand, right?
Yeah.
So it should have been facing this way with my back. I'll tell you what. Turn this way right here. Turn around. You want your power behind you. You're standing perfect right there. Okay, see your feet on that line? Get your feet on a perfect line right here, sideways. Okay, good. Now turn this way just a little more. Right there. Now open it up. Now get that right foot that way.
Mm-hmm.
See this way. See my right
Oh,
foot?
right.
Yeah, right there. Perfect. Make a fist with your right hand. Perfect. Oh, God bless you. No, right here, right here. That's so cute. Make the right here where I'm touching. Right here. Right here where I'm touching. Touches your cheek. Right here. Touch your cheek. Touch your cheek right there. Good. Right hand's right there. Never goes below your chin. You ever see boxers do this? Touch your nose. I know you haven't. Touch your nose with. Sometimes a fighter, they'll touch your nose with that right hand. That's just a reminder to keep that right hand up. It never goes below your chin. Make a fist with your left hand. Hold it right here. And once we learn how to move our head, we can drop that front hand down. But right now, we got it up right here. Perfect. Put it right here, right here. This is your 1. This is your 2. All right? When I say 1, I want to see this. I want to hear this. Punch him right at that camera. We're going to go, watch. 1. Say the word is, emphasize the yes. Let the exhaust go. Palm of the hand's facing all the way down. Bring it right back home, okay? We're going to bring every punch right from here. Every punch comes from here. Every punch comes back to here. 1, right back down. Now watch me. When I say 1, I want to see this. I want to hear this. 1. 1. Stay with me. Stay with me. 1. As fast, as hard as you can. 1. 1. You got to be fast in that. Are you kidding me? 1. 1. Watch my 2 right here. This is your 2. Watch. Okay, don't hold your hands like that. Don't it look like you're praying. You hold your hands. If you hold your hands like that, you better be praying. Right. Hands right here. Watch my right hand. See my back foot? Let me show you right here. See my foot? Good. Stay with me. No, don't turn your left foot. Turn your right foot. Get that right foot over this way. There. Watch it. Do that. Do that. Do it. Throw it. Turn your foot. You should end up on your toe like this, as if I want to jump forward. Right? 2. Say the word is, emphasize the yes. 2. 2. And watch me here. 1, 2. Go. Left, right. Left, 1.
right.
1, left, 1, 2. All right, come back on. Now watch this. 1, 2. Go. Beautiful. Go. 1, 2. 1, 2. Watch this. 1, 2, 1, 2. Go. 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 You gotta be fast in that. Come on, champ. 1, 2, 1, 2. Get your hands up. 1, 2, 1, 2. Go. Again, go. Again, go. All right, we're gonna go 30 seconds, non-stop. Go, 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 go. Speed and power. Speed, speed, speed. You're faster. What the heck are you doing? Speed, speed. Get that right hand back home. Get your hands up. Stop laughing. Look mean. Pick it up, pick it up, pick it up. You gotta be faster than that. Pick it up. Turn your foot. What are you doing? Go right here. Go, go. Keep punching. Keep punching. 10 seconds. Dig, dig, dig. Get that right hand back home. Get it back home. Speed. What the heck is going on? Straight shots, 5 seconds. Go, go, go. Faster, faster. Turn your shoulders. Turn your shoulders. Time, time, time. All right. Boxing hands. Right here. Boxing handshake. Good. Y'all are awesome. Y'all are awesome.
That's a good workout.
Oh my goodness.
So good.
That was great.
That was the best workout I ever had.
We're making you eat your coffee. Your husband is going to see that. He's going to be terrified.
I bet. I bet. I was there.
Funny.
Ah.
I'm actually gonna get him to go to your gym.